for the guests?
Well, it depends on how you do it. Again, I think where we ended up was that, when we brought this up at the last meeting, there were 3 members who expressed interest in being able to a preference to attend virtually. And we learned on Friday that is under the statutes, at least the one that runs presently. I'm not sure if what's going to happen with extensions of that. It does expire in April. Is that we do have to accommodate any member requests for virtual attendance. We do not, the public, if we provide an in-person option, there's no requirement for us to provide virtual for the public or for anybody else.
But we could if we wanted to. Right. We could if we wanted to.
If you wanted to, I mean, it just again that's where if you want to do that, then it becomes again just really having someone who is managing that meeting as opposed to trying to do it ourselves when we're also trying to kind of take notes, take minutes, participate, providing guidance to and answering your questions, things of that nature.
Dorian's all set up for sewing.
I'm always jealous of Dorian's craft room.
Lots of thread and things on the wall there.
Lots of ribbon.
And lots of little boxes that have things inside.
Does she make t-shirts and stuff too?
I don't know. We'll have to ask her.
Looks like I see the makings of that too. Wow.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi. The old meeting button.
Dorian, we're admiring all your sewing equipment there. Looks like you got a good setup.
Oh, I do card making and quilts.
Yeah.
Do you do t-shirts as well?
No, I got enough stuff I'm doing. Needlework too.
I said I'm always jealous of your craft room, Dory.
And yet I don't do any crafting in here. All at the dining room table.
Like you have all the ribbon on the wall.
Is that ribbon behind you or thread?
This is the quilt I'm making my grandson.
Oh,
wow, that's nice.
That's lovely.
I like that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Hi, Craig.
Did I see Vera?
6.
Oh, I haven't seen her yet.
We have a quorum anyway. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The women's game is late today, so none of us have to miss the game.
Well, at
Well,
least
if it was
they
early, you would just have to move fast.
All right.
They have to cancel any games today?
You
They
mean
had
because
no
of the power
power
outage? Gamble has had power all day.
Wow.
I think they made an exception for Gamble.
They
I didn't even
canceled-
think about that. I got the message at this morning saying they canceled classes until noon. And then I got another one saying, nope, we canceled it for all day. And then I got another one saying, oh, we have power back. So class will be on tomorrow.
There was a truck outside Gamble with a very long extension cord.
They seem to be doing a lot of substation work. So I was wondering if that was what might have caught, but I have no idea.
It might have been a whoops, we flipped the wrong switch kind of moment.
Don't know. I don't know what caused it. We just got, as I said, I just got the alerts that they were out. Hi, Vera.
Hi, Vera.
I did not think about the games though. It's a good point, Dory.
Vera, do you want to ride with Katie and me Thursday night? You're
muted, Vera.
I was just about to send Linda a note. I really have to attend the MRTC, so I'm gonna have to cancel for Southington, Linda.
Okay.
Thank you, Dorianne. I was gonna ask you for a ride.
How are you gonna have the committee without Katie and I?
I don't know. Maybe we can't.
Better not vote me into anything.
We got new blood, remember?
That's true.
Well, we're at the top of the hour. I think we probably have everyone we're gonna have.
Oh, Katie just joined and Laurel.
Oh, okay.
At least I thought I saw Katie.
I'm here now.
There she is. All right.
Yeah.
John, have you got a picture? We want to see you. No, no picture from John. There he is. All right. Hi, Laurel. Good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So who's John, Carlita. Only Luann's missing, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Craig, you were seated last time, correct? Nope, it was Laurel. I guess I
Yeah.
should look at the minutes.
Craig will be seated this time. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission of March 21st, 2022 at 6:02 PM. And members present are Aho, Corsi, Chandy, Cotton, DeVivo, Fertoni, Plant, Ward, and alternates Manville and Wooch, and which is seated for absent member Cooley.
Yeah.
Okay, we have minutes from March 7th.
Somebody. I guess I'll move to,
Moved by Ward,
Second.
second by Plant. All in favor? Okay, passed unanimously. Any questions for Jeline about the zoning agent report?
I had a couple of questions.
Okay,
Jolene, are you there?
Yes, Vera, hi.
I was wondering what the work was without a permit on Meadowwood Road. And also on Browns Road. I just wonder what was going on there.
Those are the pending violations.
Yeah.
So Meadowwood Road is a long-standing, like we're calling it a bridge. I'm not sure if it's a bridge.
Mhm.
It's an elevated walkway that we have been trying to get the owner to either permit or take down. And we have not been successful yet. So we are still working on that.
He did apply for a variance and was denied. So he actually cannot get a permit at this point. So he needs to remove it.
And the Browns Road one?
Browns Road is the
Which one on
Kilbania
Browns,
property.
Vera?
The 483, is it Browns Road?
Yep. So that is some removal of rocks that we are sort of investigating in terms of how much rock he's removing and whether or not that requires a special permit. Our position right now is that yes, it does. And we're working with him on that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just so you know, he's indicated it's for to expand his agricultural fields, and which if you keep it on the property, it's exempt. The rock is being removed from the property, so that's where we said that now kicks you into a different category.
He needs to
Gotcha.
make a stone wall like they did 200 years ago. All right, old business. The Champagne applicant, that's been tabled, which is A.
Yep.
B is.
So it just,
yeah,
they
okay.
have granted an extension, just to
Mm.
put that on the record, they would have had to have opened the hearing by this evening. They are not prepared to do so at this point, so they have granted an extension until May 2nd, 2022.
Okay. And the next one is the application for a more efficient drive-through at McDonald's.
Correct.
And we need to decide whether we'll be requiring a hearing.
A
or
public
not.
hearing.
I went out to the site. It doesn't seem like a very major change.
Paul, are you supposed to do that?
Am I supposed to do that? Okay, I'm not supposed to do that.
Well, because this is a non-conforming use, this is a little bit, we actually have a requirement, and it's different from any other site or special permit modification that you do. And honestly, that's why we occasionally miss it and forget to tell applicants. It says that if you're trying to change or expand a non-conforming use to do any kind of modifications, you are required to notify property owners just like you would for any other application, for like a full special permit or a site plan application. So we did advise them, I think it was a week ago Friday, that they had not done that notice. They need to send that notice out. And their response was, well, can you tell us if we're going to have to have a public hearing so that we know what to put on in terms of a date. So if there's no public hearing, then they'll put the date of the next meeting. If there is a public hearing, they just want to check off and say, is it a public hearing or is it not? So that's why this is on your agenda this evening, is if you would like to have a public hearing, then we will notify them accordingly for their notice. They didn't do that notice within 7 days of receipt. But again, the purpose is to make sure that people are getting it in enough time to comment.
So is there anyone who feels that we should have a public hearing?
Actually, Linda, I couldn't get a full site plan.
Okay.
Can I stop by and get a site plan?
We actually have some paper copies that they had at the field trip, so we
Okay,
we said,
great.
you know what, give them to us. So if anybody wants one, if we thought we were going to be in person, but we weren't. So
Okay, so there was a field trip and
Yes.
I wasn't able to go, but so what was the people that did go on that field trip? Did anyone go?
yeah,
I went, yeah.
Craig and Carlita were also there.
Okay, so now you've seen it, I guess, on.
Vera, would you like me to try and let me see if I can pull it up for you. And
I just passed through there the other day and they had a line of traffic backing up on 195 going in and people trying to get in coming the other way. It was really a mess.
That's what they're trying to resolve by
exactly.
Yeah.
I would think there might be enough interest for a public hearing, but I don't know.
If you can see can everyone see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna kind of zoom. So Vera, here's Storage Road out here.
Right.
The entrance, the drive-through. So right now, I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. What they're proposing to do. So right now they have kind of two drive-throughs. This is actually, I think, showing existing conditions. So they have the two places where you can order that are back to back, which I don't know that they've ever even had the second one operational. What they're proposing to do is to, if you've been through other McDonald's drive-throughs, you've seen this, where they're splitting. And so instead of having the second order station here, they're creating a new lane to put it here. so that you can actually, so they'll actually pick up a little bit of stacking here, because they're providing kind of 2 lanes. They will lose a few parking spaces in the back because they need to have the bypass as well as the truck access. But that's essentially the change, is instead of having their order stations be back to have 2, which will pick up a few cars, and give you a little bit more room.
Yeah, Dorian.
So they were actually proposing to do basically the same thing they did in Wilmanic.
I haven't been to that one recently, but
It is,
again,
it's double drive-through. And I don't care what time of day or night that I go through 195. There's traffic all the way out on the street. I've seen it at 2 o'clock in the morning out there, a line of traffic. I would think this would reduce the hazard of all of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that I think is that, that's why they're proposing. I think one of the reasons they're proposing to do it is to improve that flow. And I know a lot of folks have mentioned that they've seen traffic backing up. At this point, again, the question is this something that you want to have a public hearing on, or something that you feel is, no, this is not significant enough in terms of what they're proposing to change to do a public hearing?
I think it's significant, but I think it's an improvement. So I guess, I don't know if everyone would feel that way, but I mean, I don't know how many people around there are interested in what happens there. There are homes right around that area that have to deal with the traffic, so they might like to know what they're doing.
Katie?
Well, I think they are interested, because I've seen a lot of chatter about the Champagne thing, proposals and everything. So yeah, they might come out for a public hearing, if for nothing else, to either support it. I think they might support it, of course, but anything that'll help with the flow of traffic. But I do think they'd be interested.
Dorian?
So my observation with that McDonald's is them reducing parking won't have an effect on the property at all, because the majority of the people go through the drive-through and leave.
Yeah.
You go in the restaurant and it's empty. They're all going through the drive-through. I think safety-wise, this is a very good idea. Just my opinion.
So the only question is whether we want a public hearing or not.
Correct.
I would say either way, it wouldn't matter. The public hearing I think they will come out to agree to it.
John?
I tend to agree with Dorian. I don't think people, it's kind of, if you've been to the other McDonald's in Willimantic, you see how it works, and it does give them a second drive-through, and it can stack about 4 or 5 cars. So you're going to have a shorter line going on to Route 195. So people I think they're going to say this is a good idea, that they're addressing an issue. So if the commission agrees, and if we want to hear that from a lot of people saying it's a good idea, I don't see why it's bad. I can't see that. I thought about it.
Okay, but again, let's focus on whether we want a hearing or not.
Well, that goes into, I guess I don't need a hearing to know that it's a good thing.
I would tend to fall on that side, that we don't need a hearing. I can't imagine anyone would be opposed to this.
Okay, so then I would move to not require a public hearing on the application to modify the site plan special permit for the McDonald's drive-through at 118 Stores Road, McDonald's USA LLC, Carabola applicant, GGMITT LLC, care of McDream Enterprises, owner, PZ file 817.
Moved by Ward,
Second.
second by Cotton. Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, passes unanimously.
All right.
Okay. Scoping of Mansfield
Scoping.
Apartments.
Yes. I don't know how many have had a chance to look at it, but the Mansfield Apartments right across from Town Hall, the university is proposing to redevelop. There's currently, I believe, 270 beds there and about 130 parking spaces. The university is proposing to redevelop that, so it would be a complete tear down and new build. With 2 to 4 buildings, 5 to 7 stories in height, 900 beds, up to 900 beds and up to 450 parking spaces, including a parking garage. I do not have a plan that shows what this might look like. All I can tell you is this is what they're thinking. It would be, again, between 2 and 4 buildings, parking structure. We did refer this out to a few advisory committees for their review and comment, and they did provide, so Conservation Commission, Parks and Natural Resources, and the Traffic Authority all provided feedback to you, and staff took that feedback and identified several issues based on scoping. And I apologize for the length of the report, but one of the things we wanted to do is, when you're in this phase of the process, which is called scoping, they're trying to figure out whether the university has to determine whether or not they need to move forward to a full environmental impact evaluation, or if they can just move on and start designing the project. And so what we've done is identify from the regulations for the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act, the implementing regulations, when a EIE is supposed to be prepared. And so they are required to consider direct, indirect, and cumulative impacts of a variety of factors, which are all listed on page 2 of my report. And they are also supposed to, so when you get to page 3, it's looking at, is this going to have either a significant impact, or is there not enough information available to determine the actual impact? And I think I would say that's typically, if you cannot determine the full degree of the impact, but which may significantly affect the environment, you are supposed to do an EIE. And so I think that from staff's analysis and from the feedback provided by the committees is where we landed, is that we do see a lot of potential for impact, even though this is a redevelopment. And that was something that UConn focused on during the presentation at the scoping meeting, is that, you know, they're really trying to keep the area of disturbance primarily to the area that's already been developed for Mansfield Apartments. However, even though it's a redevelopment, it's such a substantial change from what's currently there that we see this as having potential significant impacts that really need to be evaluated. So, and the potential impacts are categorized using the same buckets that UConn use. So the first is impacts to the physical environment. So I would say not the Traffic Authority, as well as I think some of the other commissions expressed concern that if you're going from, you know, what is right now, I think around 130 parking spaces to 450, that's a big change. That's more than tripling the number of parking spaces there. So that, you know, that when you start looking at that and you combine that also with the fact that we already have some concerns with traffic calming and pedestrian safety, and we're, you know, going to just be increasing the total number of residents there, that is something that needs to be factored in. I believe that both the Traffic Authority and the Conservation Commission, it was either Conservation or Parks and Natural Resources, might have been, I think Parks and Natural Resources, both said, well, you're proposing 450 parking spaces, which is a lot, but when you look at the overall number of beds, and this is being proposed for upperclassmen housing, it actually seems like there isn't enough parking, so that there with 900 beds of upperclassmen housing and only 450 spaces, the concern is, where is the parking going to go for those residents who don't have parking spaces? And is that something where you're going to start to see overflow on the municipal properties, because we're right across the street and offer a convenient option? So they're concerned about the sufficiency of the parking, as well as the impacts that might have on our properties in terms of enforcement, concerned that it may drive folks to park in other places where they should not. The existing driveway access, for those of you familiar with it, a Yukon bus cannot turn out of the easternmost access unless someone is really nice and lets them turn to get into the left-hand turn lane to go north on 195. And at that point, they are literally blocking both lanes of traffic. It is too close to the intersection. We definitely see that needs to be, would recommend that be moved. The recommendations from the traffic authority on this were that they look at aligning the driveway access with the westernmost access to town hall, so that it's right across from that access point. A few benefits for that is, one, you're dealing, we're all familiar with how to deal with, four-way traffic. Another is that if we can move that, and, we recognize there may be some modifications to the town hall parking lot that we would have to consider. But if you start thinking about landscape medians, that would actually give us a distance where we could do potentially landscape medians leading up to the intersection with Storrs Road and provide some of that traffic calming, as well as, in this case, a physical barrier. Because one of the concerns that we do have with 900 beds is that, from our anecdotal experience working in this building, when Mansfield Apartments was fully occupied, most of those residents were not walking up to the corner and crossing the street and using the sidewalk to go up 195. They were crossing mid-block to the town hall property and cutting through town hall and the school to kind of shorten that route. So when you go to 900 beds, our concern is that we're now creating another pedestrian safety hazard, that we need to basically kind of encourage the route that we want by putting physical barriers in their way so that they're not trying to do that mid-block crossing. Some other items just of note, on water, it looks like the water flow test from the water supply plan may not be adequate for multi-story buildings. I'm sure that's something that they can fix. That's just a technical issue, but just wanted to call their attention to it. Stormwater drainage, again, we're concerned about Moss Sanctuary, so that drives a lot of the other comments that you'll see in the memo from me, and which includes comments from the committees. But, we always comment on stormwater. In the 10 years I've been doing this, I can't remember a project where we didn't comment on stormwater and say, we want you to do as much natural infiltration as possible. This one with Moss Sanctuary next door and the sensitive environments becomes even more important. So the next one under the physical environment is aesthetic resources. And our POCD actually identified this area as a place where we need to transition. This is kind of the southern gateway to downtown. And the idea was that this should not be, and I think that the term that we use, there's a graphic in the memo, that it should not be the 4 to 5 stories that characterize Storrs Center. So we wanted it lower than 4 to 5 stories. They're actually looking at 5 to 7. So it's kind of going in the opposite direction from where what we wanted to see as a transition to those more rural neighborhoods. So that's something that we also wanted, to say that would have a significant impact on the character of the area, looking at that. And then historic, archaeological, cultural resources. Again, this comes back to Moss Sanctuary. There are a lot of things in the sanctuary, including Stone Dam, historic pond. And we believe that it's one of the most studied natural areas in the state. And so we want to make sure that any development that's next to it is really considerate of that and deals with that through design. For the natural environment, surface and groundwater resources, the Conservation Commission did note that there appear, just from what they not having done a site walk, but just from looking at some aerial photography, that they think there may be some seeps and headwater streams on the site that would be adjacent in Moss Sanctuary, that would be adjacent to the project site, and they're concerned about the impact of this development on water quality. Same with wetlands. We don't have a full delineated wetlands at this point. All we have are basically the soil maps from the statewide level. Same concern that we need to make sure that we're looking at the quality of those. And then again, as I noticed, it's a very, very studied natural area, so plant and wildlife habitat is also important. In terms of socioeconomic impacts, that is where they are required to consider our plan of conservation development. So we have highlighted that item, particularly regarding building massing and scale. Some other concerns, public health and safety. This would be a Yukon facility, which means that it is subject to the Yukon police and fire jurisdiction. However, given the proximity to the resident trooper's office in town hall, as well as fire station 307, we expect we would be involved in any emergency responses to that development. And so trying to understand the impacts to our own public safety services is important. Community facilities and services, again, the impacts on Moss Sanctuary, we do have reports that we're already seeing trash and litter in the sanctuary from people using it. So, there is a concern that when you're tripling the number of residents directly abutting it, that may create even more potential for abuse and littering. Few other things, and this goes back to the fact that there is an easement. We do have a potential nature center location was identified at the time that the conservation easement for this was created. And the Parks and Natural Resources Committee, and you can read their comments directly, really went into depth in this on their comments and identified the need for an EIE from their perspective to make sure that that nothing that happens with the Mansfield Apartments redevelopment would compromise the sanctuary and the conservation easement. All right, access to the sanctuary also important. Most of you know that there are two accesses, the primary one being from the Mansfield Apartments site. It's typically accessed by folks parking over here at Town Hall and walking across the street. So, one of the things they've identified is that we may need to consider a second access, developing a second access point along Birchwood Heights. And so that's something, whenever we look at this, we're looking at the impacts to the town as well. So that is a summary of the 8 pages of comments that staff and the committees have prepared for your consideration.
Yes, Vera.
What would make them think they wouldn't need an EIE? And what can we hold them to in any event?
So, in terms of the EIE process, I think, again, it's a redevelopment and they're trying to keep the constraints of the project within the existing disturbed area.
Not possible.
One of the things that we're putting in our comments is, even if you do that, and we typically support, if you think about it from a planning perspective, you want to see redevelopment as opposed to greenfield development. That without a doubt is a better use of land. In this case, again, one of the things we were trying to call out is that we do see the potential for significant impacts that cannot be understood or evaluated without the EIE. We need the traffic analysis. For example, one of the things that PNRC mentioned was, as we look at that, some of you may be aware that Yukon over the years has proposed a connection that would run between Town Hall and the Community Center and E.O. Smith High School and Eastwood Road. That would be a direct connection to Bolton Road. That has been that's been controversial over the years, particularly for residents of Eastwood Road. If that were something that the university were looking at as mitigation for this traffic, quite frankly, we'd also need to understand the impacts of that action in terms of what might happen in terms of impacts with that roadway. And so that roadway was not brought up. It was not mentioned as something they were contemplating as part of this. But it's something that, we would want to understand, not only the impacts, but also the impacts of any mitigation that they might be considering for this action. I think the other thing, that we've put in here is looking at, with alternatives, the focus was really on, here are the other things that were in our master plan that we're not doing. So structured parking, mixed use, hockey arena. I think alternatives, just as you've discussed it as an inland wetlands agency, alternatives can also mean, it doesn't mean not doing residential. We're not, it can mean, well, maybe you do residential, but you don't look at 900 beds as a way to reduce the impact, or, thinking of things in that way.
Just for the record, at 6:25, Len Cooley joined us. And so Craig is no longer seated. Now, our role in this is purely advisory, right?
Correct. So at this point, they're in the scoping process. And so as part of scoping, again, what we're doing, what staff recommends at this point is that the commission submit comments identifying and requesting that a full environmental impact evaluation be performed, because we cannot understand the full impact of this action without that application, but without that analysis, but that we do see the potential for significant impact. One of the things that the university has to do is, through the scoping process, all of the comments that they receive, they actually have to prepare responses to as part of their report on the scoping process that gets published in terms when they make their decision as to, are we moving forward with an EIE, or do we believe an EIE is not required? If it goes to the EIE, then there will be another, they will prepare the environmental impact analysis, and there will be opportunities to comment at that time as well. And, there's a public hearing as part of the EIE process. And again, with any EIE, you do have to respond to comments that are received and identify, how you're addressing them, if there are impacts. So it's advisory, but this is the process that statute lays out for us to be able to weigh in on state agency actions that have the potential to impact the surrounding environment.
Okay, any other discussion on that? All we need to do is someone needs to move to push your report
I think
to the university. Yes,
Carlita's got her hand up.
Yeah.
I just had one comment. I really wanted to thank our staff for their thoroughness in putting this together, because I went through it as well. And I saw a lot of meticulous attention to detail on all of those pages. You pointed out some areas that would be of concern to all of us. So I would speak strongly in support, obviously, of the EIE. And thank you to staff for your extra efforts.
Yeah.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good
And
job.
honestly,
Good job.
I think we also need to give some kudos to our advisory committees. So I attended the Conservation Commission. Jen was at both Conservation and the Parks and Natural Resources. And I went, they spent a lot of time talking about this, and I'm on the Traffic Authority. And I can tell you the Traffic Authority spent time thinking about this and kind of going through and saying, all right, what are our concerns from a traffic, pedestrian safety standpoint? So I guess the main question is, did we miss anything? Is there anything, do you disagree with anything we had that we put in the comments? Is there anything you want to add? Because otherwise there is a motion for you to consider that would authorize the chair to submit comments based on this memo. So we would basically take this memo and craft it into a letter to the university.
Someone like to put that motion forward?
I'll move. Board
Okay.
moves to authorize the chair to prepare and submit comments to the University of Connecticut on behalf of the Planning and Zoning Commission regarding the proposed redevelopment of Mansfield Apartments. Said comments shall be based on the report dated March 16th, 2022 from Linda Painter.
You only need that bracketed piece if you're going to make any changes.
No, I
Oh,
think you, as Carlita says, you've covered it very well. So I would just end with from Linda Painter.
Moved by Ward,
Chandy seconds.
Chenji second. All in favor? Okay, we'll get that off to the university for their consideration.
All right, Paul, so I will be working with you in the next couple of days to get that letter. We do want to get that in this week by Thursday. It's the comment deadline. The university did give the town extra time, an extension, because the council does not meet until Monday, but I'd like to meet that deadline.
Okay,
And then we will.
I'm here tomorrow. Wednesday, I'm going to Savannah, Georgia. So
all right,
let's
so
do it
we'll be
tomorrow.
working on this tomorrow. And we'll get that in, and then the council will have the opportunity to weigh in at their meeting on Monday, and we'll actually have your letter as part of the packet.
Okay.
All right.
So we have a survey. We have a potential survey to go out regarding cannabis.
So I just wanted to, this is something we actually talked about with the Regulatory Review Committee last week. So I was like, you know what, we're just going to put this on the agenda. So everyone is aware of it. What we're trying to do is to get input from the community before we draft regulations. So we have kind of revised the framework that we gave you a few months ago. And what you'll see is that we've really narrowed down the focus. So the idea is that right now, the proposal would be to prohibit cultivation and production of cannabis and marijuana townwide. I think the committee's feeling is there's really a lot more research that needs to be done to understand the potential ramifications and impact of those uses. And so they wanted to focus really on, I would call it the retail, manufacturing / packaging, and delivery and the lab analysis, and to focus on those uses. We are also saying that you cannot do anything with cannabis as a home occupation. So no one's making brownies, you know, in your cottage kitchen. So we did try, and I will say that the biggest challenge that we had at a staff level with this, which was, I think, confirmed by the committee, is trying to write this in such a way that's understandable to the general public that is not immersed in zoning regulations and the 300-page statute that governs cannabis and marijuana. So the first question gets to, you know, just simply, should we allow these uses? Should we prohibit them townwide, or should we allow them under certain conditions? And just trying to take it, just to get a general feeling from the public as to where they stand. The second one, and I apologize, I just looked at this and went, oh, it did not show up. But believe it or not, when this works properly, there's actually a map that shows the zoning districts so that people can say, okay, for each of the use types, where would you be supportive of potentially seeing this happen? So that's questions 2 through, I think, 6. District 7 is just a general, they can fill in and tell us, you know, are there other locations we should consider? Question 8, what types of restrictions should we be putting on these uses? And the options are creating separation distances from childcare and schools, separation distances from houses of worship and other religious institutions, separation distances from hospitals, and then restricting operations to the same days and hours as alcohol sales. If there are any other conditions they want us to consider, and then just general comments. And apparently we have another, I think I used a question from them, so that needs there's a little typo there, but basically asking where are they located. So that's intending to kind of get to, are they residents of Mansfield, or do they have other interests here? Their age, and then we do also ask for, you know, are you a resident? Do you work in town? Do you know, is there other, why are you filling out this survey? So we have an idea of your perspective. So those questions, I believe I actually added after meeting with the committee, because I was like, oh, this would be helpful to understand who's filling the survey out and why. So does anyone have any comments or suggestions on how we can improve this, other than getting rid of some stray characters and fixing the maps?
I think it looks pretty good the way it's written. Yes, Bino.
Yeah, so if you're allowing non-citizens of Mansfield to comment, how much value do we put to their comments?
You know, that's going to be a decision for you guys. My guess is that, quite frankly, I don't see a lot of people who aren't Mansfield residents commenting, unless they are someone who's looking to start a business here. That's kind of who I see might respond to this. We have to figure out how to advertise this now. And so I'm thinking, well, you know, that we're probably going to we'll have to discuss whether or not we have the budget to send out kind of a postcard like we've done with some of our other surveys. But we'll need to spread the word about this and see if folks can get this out. We do want to get the survey out while the students are here, so that we're getting their feedback before we move forward with regulations.
Yes, Laurel.
Oh, that was going to be my question, was like, how is this going to be distributed, and what is the format for filling it out?
So it's actually, this is SurveyMonkey. So it's an electronic survey. What we've done in the past is for folks that do not have access to the internet or are not comfortable with electronic surveys, we have offered to print them out upon request. So we can do that. But again, one of our main things is we want, the students are now back from spring break. We've got, about a month and a half before they head into finals. So we want to get this and get feedback from everyone so that we can start moving forward on regulations.
Okay, well, let's get going with the survey.
Okay.
No new business. And we talked about what we did in regulatory review. Anything from regional planning? Anything from, oh yes, go ahead, Katie.
I'd like to make a report on sustainability, please.
Yeah, please go ahead.
We had a meeting on March 9th, and we are moving forward on getting stuff together for sustainable CT. Again, we're urging all of the town committees and commissions to look in to see how they can help us get silver again. We've already got quite a bit together. To get silver, I think we need 500 points, and we've got almost 240 right now. One thing I'd like the group to consider at some time is the EVSE stations in town. And that I know like with Holiday Mall, we tried to push to get more in there, and they resisted. And that might be something with the regulatory review, that when we're doing another regulation about when they build buildings and stuff like that, that they also do think about sustainability and putting in these type of stations. I think that, the big push is for electric cars now, and they have come a long way. The price has come down on them. In fact, that leads into on April 23rd, from 1 to 3 at the community center, we're going to have Earth Extravaganza, and that's all dealing with Earth Day. And what we're going to do is have several different kinds of electric vehicles there for people to look at, and people who will talk to other people about it so they can understand it better. But
one of those cars will be my Nissan Leaf that I just purchased.
Oh, very good. Well, the thing is, though, is we've got to get places around town for you to be, if you're on the road, for you to charge. Because it's just like when you're driving your car, you look at your gas tank and all of a sudden it says, the little idiot light comes on and says, oh, you can go 10 miles, okay? So, and I'm quite sure that electric vehicles have the same thing. So I'd like to see us maybe make a little bit of a move towards getting get more of those stations in there, sort of pushing businesses that are building to put them in also. And just even putting if they don't want to put them in, put the wiring in so that they can put them in at a later date. Just try to explain to them, it's going to save them money in the long run. And one last thing is March 14th through April 16th, you can pre-order a compost bin or a rain barrel. I've already done my compost bin. My husband doesn't like the little one I have now, so he's saying we're getting a regular one. I already have a rain barrel. All of these things will help us in the long run. And it'll help with water consumption, and it'll help with gardening. So any questions, just let me know.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? You have any words of wisdom for us, Linda?
Just we're working on sustainable CT. So
Okay.
I will say that planning and development and the commission and the work that you do really accounts for a lot of those points to get to silver. So we are working with the fellow and trying to identify, some various points for things that you've done. I think the affordable housing plan, the trust fund, all of that work that has been done over the last year should be counting. We also, Jennifer identified our Helping Hands program, our COVID assistance program, as something that may qualify as an innovative action. So basically, we have to create our own category, and so we're gonna submit that, and we're drafting up some things on the process that we use with that. So, we're going to keep pushing forward on that. We also met with our consultants for the zoning regulations on Friday. So we're pushing forward to try and get them on board, given our capacity issues, and get them moving. And one of the things we did note was sustainability is a priority as we look at the regulations going forward.
Good. Well, we had a nice short meeting tonight, and we are adjourned at 6:46.
Thank you all. Have a good night, everybody.